Okay, so in today's video, we're going to be talking about Vertex to standard form and standard to Vertex form. We've already reviewed a little bit about Vertex to standard form, but we're going to continue to do a couple more problems just to make sure you're good with that before we move into standard to Vertex form. So the first example we're going to look at, and you'll need to write this down in your notes, is going to be example 1. And in example 1, we're going to have y equals 5 parentheses x plus 2 squared minus 9. Now, in this example, we're going to go through just pretty much the 4 basic steps to get to a final answer. So the first step that we're going to do here is going to be separate or rewrite this x plus 2 squared. So that's going to be y equals 5, x plus 2, x plus 2 minus 9. So in our first step, we rewrite x plus 2 squared and make it x plus 2 times x plus 2. The second step is to multiply x plus 2 times x plus 2, or simplify it. So here we're going to say x times x, which is going to be
X squared.
X squared, thank you. All right, then we're going to do x times 2, which is going to be 2x. And then 2 times x, which is 2x. And then 2 times 2, which is 4. And then we have our minus 9 on the end. Now, at this point, you can feel free to use any type of method you want to. If you like, this was FOIL strategy. All right, this was FOIL, first, outside, inside, last. But if you choose not to use FOIL, you could use distributive property, or you could use the box strategy, which a lot of people used yesterday. We'll do the example 2 with the box strategy. All right, so in number 3, the third step, all we're going to do in our third step is we're going to take and combine these numbers. So we're going to get y equals 5 x squared, and then we know 2x plus 2x is going to be 4x, and then we have plus 4 minus 9. Now we can kind of include these 2 steps together. We're actually going to end up with 5 steps because we didn't write these together, but the second step and the third step we can actually combine together if we need to. So as we go into our fourth step, the fourth step is going to be to distribute this 5. So what we're going to do is take the 5 and multiply it to each part that's in the parentheses, or each term that's in the parentheses. So 5 times x squared is going to be 5x squared. 5 times 4x is going to be 20x. And then 5 times 4 is going to be 20. And then to finish out the problem, we have the minus 9 on the end. So in the fifth and final step here, we're going to simplify or combine like terms. And here the only terms we can combine are 20 minus 9. So what we have is 5x squared plus 20x. And then 20 minus 9 is what? 11. So that's going to be positive 11. And then we have our final answer. Everything is written in standard form. All right, so next we're going to look at example 2. And in example 2, I want you to go ahead and write this one down and work it out. It should be worked out very similar to the last problem. But in example 2, we're going to have y equals negative 3 x minus 4 squared plus 7. So take a second and pause the video and see if you can work it out, and then we'll check your answer. All right, so the first step to working this problem, we'll start with number 1 here. And the first step is going to be to separate the x minus 4 squared out. So we're going to say y is equal to negative 3 x minus 4 times x minus 4. Now, for this problem, I'm actually going to switch it up, and I'm going to do the box strategy rather than the FOIL strategy. So with the box strategy, it kind of combines step 2 and step 3. So what I do with the box strategy is I draw a 2 by 2 box. And on the top, I'm going to put the first binomial, which is x and minus 4. The sign always goes with the number. Then I'm going to write x minus 4, which is the second binomial, on the side. So from here, I'm going to say x times x is x squared. X times negative 4 is negative 4x. X times negative 4 is also negative 4x. And then negative 4 times negative 4 is going to be positive 16. So when I go to rewrite this, this is actually the third step we were talking about earlier. we're going to take and combine those numbers. And then when we rewrite it, we're going to have y equals -3, parentheses, x squared. -4 plus -4 is going to be -8x, and then plus 16. And then when we finish this out, we're going to have a plus 7 on the end of the problem. Now, like I said, this was steps 2 and step 3. So we went ahead and did those 2 steps together here by distributing this out and then combining the middle term. So step 4 tells me that I need to multiply. So I'm going to distribute the -3 throughout the problem, and I'm going to come out with y equals -3x squared. -3 times -8 is going to be positive 24x, and then -3 times 16 is going to be -48. Is that what I got? -48. Should be -48. All right. Now, getting a little ahead of myself. So now we're going to do the 5th step, and the 5th step is to combine like terms, which we know we can combine this last number. So when we solve that, that's going to be -3x squared plus 24x, and then this is where you guys were seeing that -41. So then it's going to be -41 when we add -48 plus 7. So then we have our problem in standard form, and we went from Vertex to standard form. Questions on example 2? If you have questions, pause the video, raise your hand, I'll come around and help you out. All right, so next we're going to move into example 3 on our problem here. So with example 3, we're going to be looking at standard to vertex form, which is a little bit different. We're just going the other direction, but it is a little bit different in how we figure out our answer. So with this one, we're going to have y equals, let's do 8x squared minus 16x plus 27. All right, so to work this problem out, it's going to require us to work through some problems. What we know here is that we currently have A, B, and C. But what we want is A, H, and K to get it into vertex form. So in order to make this work, first thing we're going to do is just label A, B, and C. So what's A equal to here?
8.
8. And if we know this A is equal to 8, then we can go ahead and say this A is going to also be equal to 8. Now, B and C tells us nothing for H and K, but we can say B is going to be -16, and C is going to be positive 27. So in order to determine H and K, and we know H and K are called our vertex, right? This is called our vertex. So if this is our vertex, then we know to find the vertex from standard form, we talked about this last week, we're going to use the formula x equals -b divided by 2a. And what that does is it finds the x part of our vertex, or the h in this problem. So to find this number, all we're going to do is say negative times b, which is -16, divided by 2 times a, which is 8. So negative times -16 is going to be positive 16. 2 times 8 is going to also be 16. So 16 divided by 16 is equal to 1. So since this is the x part of the vertex, that's going to be the h value. So we know that the h value here is going to be our answer, which is 1. Now all that's left to find is the k value, and we know to find the second part, or the y value of this, we just need to substitute it back into our original equation. So we're going to have y equals 8. We know that x is equal to 1 squared minus 16 x, which was 1, plus 27. And then we just solve the equation. So this is going to be y equals 1 squared we know is 1, so 1 times 8 is 8. Negative 16 times 1 is negative 16. And then we have a plus 27 on the end. So to finish this one out, all we need to do is say 8 minus 16 is negative 8, and then negative 8 plus 27 is 19. So once we know the y value of our vertex, we know the y value of the vertex is the k. So we're going to take this 19 that we have down here, and we're going to write it in for our K value. So that identified our A, H, and K so that we can identify the vertex form for this problem. So recalling what we talked about with vertex form, we said vertex form is y equals A times x minus h squared plus k. So all we have to do now is just take that form and substitute our information in. So with this, we know y is equal to A, it said was 8, so we can write an 8 in for A. Then we had x minus h. Now remember, when we put h into the problem, we have to flip the sign. So since this is a positive 1, we're going to flip it and make it a negative 1. So it looks like x minus 1 here. And then that's going to be squared. And then plus k, we're just going to write the k value on the outside, so that would be plus 19 since it was a positive 19. And that's going to take us into what we call vertex form. So identifying the vertex form is pretty simple, but there is a lot more work that goes into it, and we do need to make sure we know this formula, negative b over 2a, in order to be able to solve that. If you have questions, pause the video and ask them now. Alright, so in example 4, I want you to see if you can convert standard form into vertex form using the problem that's up here on the board. Take a second, work through it, and then pause the video and work through it, and then check your answer after you finish the problem. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do in this problem is we're going to label A, B, and C. And that's pretty easy to do. All we do is label just A, B, and C based on the problem. A, B, and C. Now, once we have A, B, and C listed, we need to then go ahead and identify that A is going to be equal to 5. Next, we can go ahead and use the formula x equals negative b over 2a to help us identify the h value. So here we're going to have negative times b, which is negative 40, divided by 2 times a, which is 5. So we know negative times negative 40 is positive 40. 2 times 5 is 10, so 40 divided by 10 is going to be 4. So what that 4 tells me is that that's going to be my h value. So my h value here is equal to 4. Next, to find my k value, or my y value, I'm just going to substitute it back into the original problem. So here I've got 5 times x, which is 4, squared, minus 40 times 4, plus 67. So when I work this problem out, I know that 4 squared is going to be 16, and that 16 times 5 is going to be what? 80. 40 times 4, or negative 40 times 4 is going to give me negative 160. And then I'm going to have 67 tacked on to the end, plus 67 on the end. So when I add and subtract these numbers, 80 minus 160 is going to be 80. And then 80 plus 67 is going to give me negative 13. So I should get negative 13 as my final answer for my y value. Therefore, I can identify my k value as negative 13. So all that's left to do here is to set it up in vertex form. So we know that vertex form is y equals a, parentheses, x minus h, squared plus k. So when we're substituting this in, we know that y equals a, so a is going to be 5, parentheses x minus h, so we're going to flip the h here. So this is a positive 4, so we're going to make it a negative 4, squared, and then plus k, so that's a negative 13, so we're going to write in minus 13. And that gives it to us in vertex form. Now, if you have any questions about this, feel free to stop the video, and you can go through and look at your problem. But if you have any questions you need answered, please raise your hand, and I'll be more than happy to come around and help you out. Thanks for watching.